So you probably read the title and saw a thumbnail and said basically, hey, there's no way you can go out there and buy real estate for free. And the truth is that basically you can't just buy it for free, right? Like zero down, like no cost, no expenses ever. But the point of this video is basically to go out there and tell you exactly how do you buy real estate and control it for not that much money, sometimes nearly free. That's the goal of this video right here. Now, if you guys are new here, I post videos every single day, so make sure to also subscribe and hit the bell to get notified. On top of that, also destroying the like button. Now, the first thing is this, guys, okay? There are two ways to do everything in life, whether it's real estate, whether it's investing, and it's usually just basically a risky way to do it and then a less risky way to do it. Everything, unfortunately, has risk attached to it unless you want to be making, for example, a very small amount of money with no risk whatsoever. But in real estate, there is risk with everything. So in this video, I'll tell you the risky way to do it first, and then the less risky way to do it after, and then I'll tell you overall what my plan actually is. Again, the goal is how do you control real estate for not that much money? The risky way, not that risky, and then my plan. Now, let's get started with the risky way to go out there and buy some real estate. And the entire goal is to do this very quickly, expand very fast by leveraging and leveraging and leveraging, okay? That is your whole goal when you're doing it very risky. And by the way, it's kind of like going 200 miles per hour on a highway. That's a 50, like a 50-mile limit, right? But the answer is you go 20 miles per hour, you might get there before everyone else. But the plan is that basically, if you don't pay attention to what you're doing, at any moment, you might swerve and you might not even make it in the first place. But if you go slowly and steady, well, you're going to get there, not as fast as everybody else, but you're still going to get there and you're going to be a lot more safe and your odds are a lot better, okay? That's the whole goal between risky and unrisky. But here are the 5 most important factors when it comes to buying real estate, okay? You have the price. So how much money can you afford to actually pay for a property? And the price has to be dependent on basically where you actually live. And the more properties you visit, the better idea you get of what a good price is based on comps and also based on price per square foot when it comes to property. And by the way, comps is basically when a real estate agent compares the prices of similar properties in the area and tells you exactly what the going price should basically be. Because I say words sometimes and people say like, hey, comps, what is that? That's what it basically is, okay? Now, number 2 is basically your income is going to be a very important factor, most likely the most important factor, because basically if you have a very high income, but you take it all up with debt and payments, well, at that point, if something goes wrong with your entire income, in reality, you might not be able to afford what you're actually doing. The third factor is basically how much money are you going to put down towards a down payment. The lower your down payment is, the higher mortgage. The higher down payment, usually the lower your mortgage. And that's basically how it works. And then you have number 4, the cost of ongoing ownership. Now, when you have real estate, for example, you have maintenance to take care of, you have the taxes, you have the insurance, all that stuff is just ongoing costs to actually own the property and will forever be there even once that house is fully paid off. You will always pay taxes, you will always have maintenance, and on top of that, you will always have to take care of insurance unless you don't want to, unless you want to take a risk with your house actually burning down, okay? And the last factor is basically your profit, the most important factor, okay? So how much money are you going to make from this property? How much money am I going to get in return every single year by putting my money into this property? The goal of real estate should always be, well, how do I make this investment here make me money? You never want to lose money when it comes to real estate. Now, let's say, for example, and by the way, in this video, I'm going to use real life examples. That way you guys know exactly how everything works, okay? But now, let's say, for example, you want to figure out exactly, well, how much house can I actually afford, okay? What is my home buying power? Now, for example, here is exactly how you actually do it, okay? You go on Nerd Wallet and you type in, for example, how much house can I afford? And they'll give you a calculator based on income to debt ratio. And that is what the bank uses to say, for example, hey, this person can go ahead and afford this house based on how much money he owes and based also on his income. So now let's say, for example, I want to buy a property. What is the zip code? Again, we're going to use a real life example here. Let's say I'm looking for houses in Florida, right? Palm Coast, Florida, okay? Here are all the houses. Oh my gosh, great houses. But in reality, let's say my goal is basically to buy this house right here, $449,000, and the property looks pretty good, right? Property looks beautiful, honestly, if I'm being honest here, right? But let's grab right here the zip code of where I actually want to buy, go right back here, and put it in here, okay? By the way, copy and paste is what you need to do all the time. Palm Coast, Florida. Great. Click next. And then what is your annual household income before taxes? So how much money do I make before Uncle Sam actually takes a cut? In this case, let's say in this example, I make around $60,000 every single year. And then next, how much is your down payment? Let's say I only have around $10,000 for a down payment. Let's say, for example, $15,000 for a down payment, okay? I think that's more fair. $15,000 for a down payment. Click next. Now, how much are your monthly obligations beside housing and everyday necessities like food? Now, what this means is basically how much money do I have to pay in debt and what's the minimum, okay? So my credit cards, what's the minimum? My student loan debt, what's the minimum? My car loan, what's the minimum? All the debt I have, what is the minimum payments every single month? Now, just to make this fair here, let's just say, for example, I don't have any debt whatsoever, okay? So just put 0 here. I don't have any debt. Great. Now let's click next. What's my credit score? Let's say I don't have an excellent credit score, but I do have a pretty good credit score of around 690 or so. It's going to be important if you want to get some good rates when it comes to your mortgage. Let's click done. It'll tell me exactly how much house I can actually afford. In this case, it says, for example, hey, if you want to buy an affordable home, you want to go right here, around $273,000. But again, I want to be a little bit more risky. So I want to stretch it all the way to what the bank actually recommends, around 43%, okay? In this case, I can afford a house around $332,000. Tommy, no way, okay? That's not true. If you make $5,000, your housing cost is going to be around 37% of your income, because that's going to be closer to around $2,148 when you account for the payments and everything. On top of that, your debts are 0% of your income. Great. But then you have expenses and savings, right? In this case, you have around 31% of all your money is actually going to go towards your expenses, because basically you have to buy food. You have to buy, for example, bills, whatever you actually have, a car, whatever you have, right? So all those things take a part of your income. And then you also have taxes. You can't forget about that. They take around 32% of your income. And that's where this entire equation basically comes from, okay? So although you might say, Tommy, I can actually go out there and afford a lot more home, in reality, you can't. Not in this case, okay? So in this scenario, I can go ahead, I can't afford this home right here. It's too expensive, obviously, but I can afford this home right here for around $335,000. Maybe like a little bit more, I'll save more money, but I can buy this home right here. Now, obviously, once I buy this property right here for $335,000, it tells me a rent estimate in the area. At least Zillow does, okay? And it says, for example, in the area, the average rent is around $1,850, right? So in this case, okay, my mortgage is only around $1,867. So in this case, I'm only going out of pocket by around $17, right? That's the general idea. But in reality, that's not all, because basically you have to worry about maintenance. If at any point something goes wrong with this property, you need to be able to afford that expense. And on top of that, if you go ahead and rent it and something crazy breaks down, you have to fix that also. And if you lose your income, in reality, you might not be able to take care of yourself and also take care of that property. Now, the perfect way to limit risk when it comes to this entire plan is basically you buy a house in an area where it's kind of like populated. That we can go ahead and do house hacking. So for example, if I'm going to live in this home right here, right, this entire home right here, if I was actually in a high populated area, I can grab some bedrooms and then rent them out. That way, I'm not going that much out of pocket. I use my income to pay down the property even more. That way, I lower my mortgage by increasing my equity. And then eventually, once my payments are very, very low, or I pay off the property, I can go ahead and buy a second rental property and then move in there and do the same thing over and over and over again. But the real risk to going ahead and buying a property like this is basically, it's all based on your income, and everything has to go perfectly, because if you lose your job, you can't afford it. They'll foreclose on you. If you can't find someone to actually rent it and you have vacancies, that's going to take such a big chunk of your money that you might not be able to actually afford it. And that's the risk of actually doing this. But if everything goes perfect, you buy this property and the second property and the third property, you can basically control it for a very small amount of money, only around $17 if it's fully always rented. But then you have 1% basically for maintenance. That's only going to be around $3,500 every single year. Not that much money. You'll still be negative, But as you keep going and going and going into your home mortgage, you'll eventually start cash flowing, okay? And that's the goal with properties, right? But until you get to that point, everything has to virtually be perfect. And that's the real risk there. However, let's say, for example, you want it to be a lot less risky. You want it to take your time, pay more money, and go just step by step. What would be the perfect plan? Well, in this case, we would have to go right back here to the entire afford ratio, right? In this case, we don't want to buy a property around 43% of our entire income. We want to buy a property that's closer to around 33%. So in this case, I'll buy the property that's going to be around 33%. So it has to be only around $1,668 every single month. Now, in this case, we have to go ahead and adjust our entire prices for homes we're actually looking for, because in reality, we can no longer afford a house that's over this amount right here. So I'll grab this amount right here, go over to Zillow, go over to what my starting price is, and go over right here to how much I can actually afford. In this case, only $251,000, okay? Now, let's say I want to buy this property right here for around $234,000, okay? This property looks pretty good. It can use some work. Yes, it's outdated, yes, but you have an extra 20K or 16K to go ahead and make some fixes if you actually want to. But the property is not that bad at all. So I go ahead and I buy this property here, right? I go right here. I say, for example, hey, my mortgage is going to be, the house is going to be around $250,000, right? And instead of only putting down, for example, 6%, I'm going to put down around 20%. So in this case, I'm only going to be paying every single month, including property taxes and also home insurance, only around $1,260, okay? That's the awesome thing. Which now means if I want to do house hacking, basically have somebody rent inside there a room, well, now I can pay less money, build up the equity very quickly in this home, or pay it off in full, and that way all the cash that comes from this property is going to be mine 100%, or basically paid down to a point that basically, hey, I'm going to build up my equity to around 50%. That way my payments are only $946, which means basically if I lose my job or anything goes wrong, I can still afford to pay this property no matter what. And that is what you want to do. Once you're done with this one, you go ahead and move over to your second property, then your third property, then your fourth property. The entire goal is basically you want to buy a property that's not going to take up that much of your income. You want to buy it with around 20% down payment. That way you have built-in equity already. Then you want to use house hacking, if that's actually available in your area, to actually help you pay the property off a lot faster. You can build up to 50% equity, or for example, pay the property in full, you own it 100%, then move over to your next rental property and then build that one up to a lot of equity also. That way, you never have to worry about, hey, if this property is very vacant for a while, I can't afford to pay. Your entire goal is to limit your risk. You go slower, yes, but by taking your time, you limit a lot of the risk. So by the way, if you want to be ultra conservative, usually you buy your first property, you pay that one off in full. If you're actually very, very frugal and you know what you're doing with house hacking and everything, you can pay it off maybe like 3 to 5 years. You buy that property, right? It's paid off in full. You buy your second property, you pay that one off in full in around 2 to 3, 5 years also. Then you buy another one, another one, another one, another one, another one. And before you know it, it gets a lot more easier to actually buy properties. Now, I do want to show you guys some math here before I actually go. And by the way, this video is a little long, but trust me, it's worth it if you want to get into real estate and eventually not take that much risk. But in this case, now again, guys, let's use a real life example here for the math also. The house costs $234. The rent estimate is around $1,650. Okay, so let's go right here to a calculator to figure out exactly what our entire gain every single year actually is. In this case, the rent is going to be $1,650 multiplied by 12. In reality, we're making around $19,800. But if we pay for this house in cash, and we put that, for example, divided by $235,000, it'll tell us exactly how much money we're actually making in percentage, okay? Multiplied, well, we're actually making around, multiplied by 100 here, we're getting around an 8.4% return every single year on average from this property. On top of that, we also have to add up the appreciation of real estate, which is around 3% every single year. So add up plus 3%, that's around 11% every single year. But again, we want to be realistic here. In reality, we have maintenance costs that's going to be around -1%. We have inflation, -2%. Then we also might have, for example, extra stuff here and there like taxes, let's say -2%. Well, in reality, we're still making around 6.42% on our money, and that is still a pretty good return when it comes to real estate. Okay, so that's the way I see it, that's the way I do the math, and that's the way I'm basically going to do it, and the way I'm currently doing it also today. So guys, that is basically it. Okay, whenever you're going to go out there and buy some real estate, you want to make sure A, you can afford it, B, you're prepared for the worst scenario possible, and 3, do you want to build up more equity to lower the payments, or do you want to go out there and take more risk by having less equity in the home and then renting it? But if a vacancy goes on, in reality, you might be in trouble. But guys, that is it overall. Hopefully this video helped you in some way. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Comment down below, let me know. Also, make sure to also like this video. On top of that, also subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified. And on top of that, if you want to text me or talk to me, start my Patreon link down below, or send me a DM on Instagram at TommyBryson. If you want to watch a video basically how to save for a down payment on a house, watch the video right here. Click around. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace.